Today I'm holding a list of approximately 100 names that I've compiled over time, my lifetime. 49 years I lived in the community of Waterford, Connecticut. I was there long before Millstone ever came to the neighborhood. It was an utmost pristine area. Once Millstone entered the area, as a child growing up, I began noticing that there were cancers in my neighborhood affecting children. Specifically, as a teenager, I babysat for the children on my street. They're on this list. 2 children, one house away from each other. One child, 2 years old, with leukemia, suffered greatly. Child, one house away from him, 9 years old, suffered with spinal tumors, and both of these children have passed away. What was the most incredible lesson that I've learned growing up in that neighborhood was how difficult it was for the suffering of these children, their great courage in fighting this deadly disease, and then the follow-up was they did not survive the disease and succumb to it. And as a young person, under 16 years of age, attending their wakes and funerals, watching the little white coffins be placed in the ground was the most heartbreaking and life-altering experience. As time went on in my community, I began to notice that there were not just every other house, but every house on my street was afflicted. That I would go to neighborhoods where there were 8 out of 12 homes that had a cancer in the house. I was holding the hands of my friends that were being buried at the age of 31 and dying of brain cancer, shortly following their parent dying of some other ailment like liver cancer. I worked at the nuclear power station and I observed workers being exposed in areas of the plant that were highly radioactive. My father, Joseph H. Besaid, was a nuclear pipe fitter there at the plant Millstone Nuclear Power Station for 20 years. He was I watched him dress up and walk into the reactors to do work in protective clothing that was to keep him safe from the radiation doses. That was inadequate gear in order to protect him, and as he lay dying in the hospital, the doctor confirmed to him that it was indeed his work-related exposure that took his life. In my thought process, this was premeditated murder. They knew they were exposing him. They knew that they did not protect him with adequate gear, and they allowed him to conduct his work unprotected, and that subsequently took his life at 66 years of age. He was one of 9 pipe fitters, nuclear pipe fitters at the Millstone Nuclear Power Station who succumbed to the very same cancer. In another department, there were 3 people who had brain cancer. The brain cancers were so closely related in time that there's only one surviving member of that department, and the way that the company chose to handle that was to meet the men at the door and tell them that they were fired January of 1994. I have on this list people in my neighborhood, people that I knew intimately, friends of mine, classmates, parents. Sometimes there's 1 per household, 2 per household, children, teenagers, people dying prematurely. My father was 66. His best friend, 50 years of age, brain cancer, 2 streets away, that I used to sit and serve coffee to. These are my personal experiences of what happened in my lifetime of being a community resident, and I cannot turn away from what I know. This is a fact. This is not something that I read about and came to a conclusion. This is my life. These are the people that are my life that are gone now. I can't, when I have a thought of calling them up and sharing something with them, or driving by their house and wanting to drop in for a cup of tea, I have to remind myself that they're no longer here. That if I want to do any kind of commemoration, I must go to the cemetery and leave flowers on their grave. This is a horrible, horrible experience for me. So much so that it makes me want to leave the community. But at the same time, my passion is to tell the community, to tell the world that this problem exists, and not let it be quashed by a local media that wants to shoot the messenger, that wants to take down the very people that are telling the world, you need to take notice here to save your own life, to save the life of those that you love, to preserve the unborn, to protect our future. The children are our only hope for a fine future. Our world depends upon this. If we're killing them prematurely for profit, then that is a crime. And that comes under the term premeditated murder. They murdered my father, they murdered the people on my list, and they are not held accountable. I want accountability. I cannot bring these people back. That is impossible. That is something I have to live with every day. It is a heartbreak to me that I no longer have the ability to turn to my father and tell him of the experiences and the progress that we are making in this arena, because we will not stop. We are not stoppable. We have a message and we're going to bring it forth to the world. We have to, because our government is turned a blind eye, because our media, our local media that we depend upon for information, cannot deliver it in an unbiased, fair manner, and therefore our public is uninformed. My community is uninformed. If they were informed, they would be filling the streets here. You would have nothing, no standing room at all. But because they are uninformed, they're dealing with their own personal tragedy in darkness and in silence. And our message is squashed because we are trying to inform them while the media is contradicting and while the government is putting out false statements. We have nowhere to go.